What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz and We are live on YouTube right now. You might be listening to it, in the car, while you're walking your dog, when you're on the treadmill, afterwards, wherever you are. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk Week 4 waiver wire. Zach, take it away, dude. Talk about your Cowboys last night. That's your team.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? No Dak Prescott. 2-0 Giants, right?
Oh, yeah.
In New York.
Those
In New
scary
York.
2-0 Giants. I wasn't worried about him. I think Dallas matched up well with them. If I figured it would be a low-scoring game. I thought it was really going to be bad when it was 6-6. Was it like midway through third quarter? And, nothing was happening. I thought it was really going to be like a baseball score, but things got better towards the end, so that was cool. CD Lamb finally came through for fantasy owners. That was big. Saquon didn't do bad himself.
He was one of our buy lows last week, huh?
Yeah, he was. And he could have done even better if he caught that ball that Cooper Rush just dropped right into the numbers. Like, I was so mad when that happened, because like that was so easy. And it was like, I saw like a next gen stat this morning on ESPN. They're like, oh, this is like it's the first time this season that a receiver open with 6 yards of separation between him and the nearest defender dropped the pass 30 yards down the field. It's just like,
wow,
figures. But, despite all the trouble and the crap that CD Lamb's been getting, his target share has been the same pretty much week in, week out. 11 targets week 1 and then 12 targets apiece week 2 and 3. Like, he's getting the ball regardless. So that's very encouraging. The production hasn't been there, but it looks like we're kind of trending that direction with Cooper Rush getting more and more immersed in the offense. CD Lamb, if you listen to us and we said buy low, when Dak comes back, there's no telling what his ceiling could be because suddenly after the panic in week 1, Dallas's offensive line looks good, at least much better than it was. The offense looks better. I mean, it took a little while to get going, but definitely much better situation for CD. I'm feeling good about my Cowboys.
Yeah, for sure, man. And listen, with the backup quarterback, going 8 for 87 with touchdown, 12 targets. He could have had another huge game, probably a touchdown.
Yeah.
So this could have been a huge game for him. So this is good for CD Lamb, man. 2 games in a row, 11 targets, 7 for 75 in week 2 with Cooper Rush. His worst game was with Dak Prescott. So, this is a very encouraging for CD. And what he looked like. I don't think when Gallup comes back, this is going to be a situation where we have to worry that much about the target share.
Right.
But we will get to Michael Gallup because he is one of our waiver wire pickups this week. He's still not more than 50% rostered in leagues. But yeah, let's get into the waiver wire rankings. I don't think there's too much news. We will cover a lot of these injuries, with these waiver wire rankings because there's a few running backs, kind of, banged up here. So let's get right into it, man. We got Jamal Williams at number 1. We have Khalil Herbert at number 2. I have Romeo Doubs at number 3 and have Alexander Madison at number 4. Now, Jamal Williams and Alexander Madison might not be available in your league, right? But I put them up there because I've actually been getting a lot of questions like, hey, all 3 of these guys are available in my league. So, it really depends. Some leagues have shallow benches, right, where you can't really afford to put like these handcuffs on your bench and you kind of need guys who you can plug in when you need them.
Yeah.
So there's all different types of leagues and these guys might not be available in your waiver wire. Just want to kind of acknowledge that first, right? But the reason why I have Jamal Williams number 1 here is because he might not be available because DeAndre Swift might not be available this week. He's likely out the next 2 weeks. And that's really just based on what Dan Campbell said about the smart thing to do, right? Which would be to rest him over the next 2 weeks. They have a bye following that. And then DeAndre Swift can come back in week 8, right? So 4 or 5, and then week 7, right?
Yeah.
The bye would be in week 6. So Jamal Williams, is going to be close to an RB1 play while he's out. I will say that Craig Reynolds might be involved more than you think, right? We saw this last year where Jamal Williams wasn't the guy on 80% of snaps, but he looks a lot better this year. He's been very involved. The offense is a lot better than they were last year as well. So even if he doesn't get that 80% snap count, he should still be elevated to a high-end RB1, a high-end RB2, or low-end RB1 play this week with upside to finish top 5, to be honest.
Right. No, definitely. I agree with you. a lot of Jamal Williams being the priority pickup, has to do, and you said he looked better this season than he did last season. That has to do with the Lions offense just in general being a lot better. They're very high scoring. It's actually nice to see that because we haven't seen a good Lions offense in a long time. But I think with DeAndre Swift, this is more precautionary than anything if they hold him out. My guess is he could probably play not this week, but the next week. But there's really no reason to do that. I think they rolled the dice already. He was dealing with that. Was it the ankle injury last week?
Right.
And he added a shoulder injury now to it, right? Is that what it is now?
Yes, exactly.
So now it's just like, is there a reason to play him when he's going to be nursing two different injuries on the field? He is productive, we've seen, even when he is banged up and still on the field, regardless of how much he touches the ball. When he touches the ball, he's productive. But I'd expect an extended absence because this is just, they're playing the long-term game. And they can play the long-term game at this point because it's still early in the season. There's no reason to rush him back. Let's just let him get healthy. I think that's what we're going to see. And Jamal Williams, you should be able to benefit from him the next 2 weeks.
For sure.
Lineup.
He's only available in about like 35 to 40% of leagues, but that's still quite amount of leagues that he's still available in. And if you need to play and he's available, you should check. You never know.
And for the way he's produced, that's actually surprising.
It is for sure. Especially this past week. The real production has come this past week. Yeah, he did get a couple touchdowns before that, before week 3. But week 3 is kind of when he blew up, and now people are really paying attention.
Yeah.
Because everyone knew that DeAndre Swift was going to be the guy, right? But Khalil Herbert, I have him at number 2 here. If we knew that David Montgomery was going to be out, maybe I'll put him at number 1 because it really depends on how long David Montgomery is going to be out for. But given that the Lions are a much better offense, that's why Jamal Williams is up there, and he's already been producing, with DeAndre Swift on the field. But Montgomery, as of right now, is listed as day-to-day, but it's possible that he does miss time. A lot of medical experts are looking at like the mechanism of his injury and calling it a high ankle sprain. It might not be, right? It might be a low severity ankle sprain. But Herbert, regardless, he looked really good last week, right? And he had a better game than David Montgomery ever had. So, Herbert might have even earned some playing time in Chicago. So he might be worth a pickup regardless, right? And I think you were kind of touching on this point when we were talking about the game yesterday. But I think what's going to happen here is Montgomery is probably going to miss at least 1 week. That's what it seems like to me. We don't know the severity of the injury just yet. When they were asking Matt Eberflus, I think that's how you say it, whether he'll be put on IR, he was kind of avoiding the question. He didn't really say no. So because of that, there is a little bit of skepticism in terms of how bad this injury actually is.
Right. Khalil Herbert, he was the entire Bears offense, and it seems like that's the way the Bears are going to continue to run things until or if Justin Fields shows that he can throw the ball. I personally think that Justin Fields has it in him to throw it and, do much more than what the Bears are allowing him to do right now. But until, the Bears coaching staff sees it that way, it's just going to be the run game for the Bears. And Khalil Herbert, even if David Montgomery does play, I feel like Herbert's going to be in line for a bigger workload while Montgomery's coming back. And, he might be on a snap count getting back from the injury. Because it doesn't sound like they're overly concerned, but it sounds like they're just on that. They're walking the fine line of, is it worth starting him? Is it that much of an upgrade over Khalil Herbert, that we need to start David Montgomery? I don't think they need to start David Montgomery. I think they can also do the long-term game just like they're doing with Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift in Detroit. But Khalil Herbert is going to be the guy on the ground, I think. And much more, even so, like you said, I think that Khalil Herbert might be in line for more work, just like you said. So
yeah, it's possible. And it's possible that he plays that every down role, right? He did split with Ebner early in the first half, but once he got rolling, they did not take him off the field in any situation, which makes sense, right? Ebner is a really good pass catcher. He was a good pass catcher in college. Something to keep an eye on, but Herbert's going to be the guy. Now I have Madison at number 4 after Romeo Doubs, who I have at 3. And the reason for that is, obviously Madison might not be available in your league. I have him here just in case he is. But, Dalvin Cook did dislocate his shoulder. Madison and Dalvin Cook still has a chance of playing this week, right?
Yeah.
And Madison does have a chance of playing more this week. Now, there are reports suggesting that Cook will play with a harness. But if Cook injures his shoulder again, which is more likely now, Madison is a high-end RB1 play if Cook is out this week, or if he's out the following week. There's now it's like Madison should just stay on rosters for the rest of the year, as he should have been. But now there's more of a higher injury risk to Dalvin Cook at this point.
Yeah.
So the reason why I have him at 4 behind Romeo Dubs is because there's no guarantee that Madison will even be playable this week, because it is possible that Cook does go.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned yesterday, Cook had some serious workloads once he
The
got the
injury, yeah.
harness on.
Yeah, no, they had 27 carries in the big game against Pittsburgh. I'm not sure if that's something that's going to be sticky, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if it did. If he's playing with their harness, I don't see why they wouldn't use him. If Dalvin Cook's on the field, you're going to use him. And it's
right.
never been a utilization problem for Cook this season. It's just been, an off night in Philly. They had a big game, but it was Justin Jefferson in week 1. And against the Lions, he actually did all right before going out with the injury. So it's never been a utilization thing. As long as Dalvin Cook's on the field, I think you start him. I remember back last year, we were having the discussion of, if Dalvin Cook plays, are we even going to start him? Because we're not sure how he's going to look with his one shoulder hanging lower than the other one in a harness. It's just like, nah, if he's on the field, you start him. But otherwise, Madison is the guy.
Yes, 100%. And I have Romeo Dubs here at number 3, and he might have Aaron Rodgers' trust, dude. He took advantage. Sammy Watkins was out. He's on IR now. Christian Watson was out. He caught all of Aaron Rodgers' targets. He had 8 of them, caught all 8. And that can build trust, right? And this might be the first glimpse of any Packers wide receiver stepping up to the plate this year.
Yeah.
So you combine this game with the offseason hype, and we might have something here. He did run the most routes of any Packers wide receiver this past week. He's a starter. He'll likely continue to start next week. So he's somebody that I'm prioritizing if he's available on waivers, because if you have Aaron Rodgers' trust and there's no other wide receivers there, there's some serious value here potentially.
Yeah, 100%. And like we said, we've kind of seen this coming the whole time. I'm not sure if I'll have to see how Christian Watson does when he does play, but right now Romeo Dubs seems like the safer bet. I'm not sure what Christian Watson's upside is going to look like. We talk about the Packers receivers and what's it going to be, Romeo Dubs or Christian Watson coming in. It seems like, Romeo Dubs is the guy right now. And I feel like it's going to be difficult for Christian Watson to kind of work in, with Romeo Dubs showing up and earning the trust, it seems like, of Aaron Rodgers in this game. I think that Christian Watson might be in line for a lesser workload than maybe he might have had, say, if Romeo Dubs had a poor showing this week. So Romeo Dubs definitely a guy you want to pick up. I think that he can actually return a lot of fantasy value and be a wide receiver too for you if this type of production holds up, which I don't see why it wouldn't, because, Aaron Rodgers spent the first 2 weeks of the year looking for the guy in the passing game, and now he has it. So I'd love to see it continue, because Romeo Dubs, we were talking about maybe is any Packers receiver going to be relevant? I think we have one right here in Romeo Dubs.
I'm with you. Treylon Burks, I have him here at number 5. This might be a high to some people given the fact that he only caught 1 ball this past week, but he didn't come through. But he's still finally, he's finally a full-time player at this point. He led the Titans in routes run, which is not something that we've seen at all throughout preseason, throughout camp. Finally, in week 3, it happened. So if he gets dropped in your league after waivers clear, I'd scoop him up. If he's available right now, I'd scoop him up, and you probably don't have to spend that much to get him. Right? That's the best part.
Right.
Like, this is what for me personally, I love these type of situations, because you're like, oh wow, that usage was amazing. I hope he doesn't score. Right? Because right. as soon as they score, it brings all this unwanted attention on that player that you want. But the fact that he only caught 1 ball, he'll be pretty easily attainable this week without having to spend a whole bunch of FAAB on him. There is a potential breakout coming, and Treylon Burks, like, when he's got the ball, he looked really good. So so far, since we've seen him. So I do want to prioritize him, and you don't have to spend that much money on him.
No, absolutely not. If you can't get him to the waivers, we talked about this yesterday, and we'll probably talk about it tomorrow when we do the buy sell. He's a guy you should target for very cheap. You'll be able to target for very cheap going in to this week, because Treylon Burks, he didn't have that production like we said, but the usage is there, and that's like it's like the foundational rule is if the usage is there, and the production isn't, something's got to give, and most of the time it's the usage that will indicate that better days are ahead for a receiver, and that's what we're looking at with Treylon Burks.
100%, man. All right, so I have Tyler Conklin at number 6 here. He had 7+ targets each of the last 3 weeks, and his route participation is up near that threshold that we want to see.
Yeah.
And despite the talent that the Jets have at wide receiver, he's still getting his. So we'll see if targets end up getting redistributed with Zach Wilson coming back this week. But at least the route participation is there. He's running a ton of routes,
Yeah.
and if anything, the targets can stay very similar to what it is right now. I think he's currently the tight end 3 on the year or something
I
crazy
think
like
it's
that.
something crazy. Yeah. Let
Yeah,
me
it's
check.
something crazy. I have it up right here. Let's see. He
Tyler
is the
Conklin, tight end 4. I have.
wow. Yeah, he's a tight end 4.
So,
That's crazy.
did anybody have Tyler Conklin for tight end 4 going into the season?
I did.
Yes, you did.
I'm kidding. I did not. Yeah, Tyler Conklin, in total points, he's a tight end 3 behind Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Through 3 weeks. Insane. That's amazing. So yeah, you should pick him up for sure. Zay Jones, I have him at number 7. We talked about him yesterday. Led the Jaguars in targets with 11. Caught 10 of them for 85 yards and a touchdown. That's 2 games now out of 3 where he's had 9+ targets. Christian Kirk is still the guy there, obviously, coming out of the slot, but their perimeter, it seems like their main perimeter weapon right now is Zay Jones.
Yeah, no, I think so. Christian Kirk, is the guy, regardless, I think, in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence obviously has a connection with him, and that's been their big signing. But Zay Jones has kind of flown under the radar. If you want to get yourself a cheap flex play, if you don't have him already, I wouldn't be, like moving any guys for him. But if he's there on the waiver wire, definitely pick him up. There's no reason not to. The target share is there. And like we talked about, this is not the same Jaguars team. This is Trevor Lawrence looking much closer to the prospect that he was coming into the NFL than he did last season. And now Zay Jones is kind of reaping the benefits. He was one of the guys that I was like, man, why are they adding Zay Jones? They have all this budget, in free agency, and they pick up Zay Jones on a really cheap deal. But it seems like it's working out for him so far. And if he's going to get the targets, there's no reason to not have him on a roster. I mean, this isn't like a 4 or 5 target guy. He's getting 9, 10 targets, and
exactly.
The offense looks good, which, this season's been full of surprises. I didn't think we were going to be saying this about the Jaguars, or at least not this early in the season. So it's been a good surprise. Zay Jones, 100%. You can pick him up.
It's the Doug Peterson effect, man. It's crazy. And it's crazy. Like they're the worst coach possible last year, and now this year, it's completely changed. So we have Russell Gage here at number 8, 50% roster here. This is more of a short-term ad. Mike Evans will be back this week, so we can't necessarily depend on Gage to get the type of target share and production that he got last week. But with Julio Jones banged up, Chris Godwin is still out. It's possible he's still very much in Brady's plan. So, you got to keep an eye on Cole Beasley. He might start to work his way into the rotation a little bit more. But I think Gage is still worth a pickup if he's available.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Gage serves much better as a complementary receiver to, a guy like Mike Evans. And that's what Russell Gage was doing at Atlanta when Julio Jones was around. And Gage was actually pretty good. He did show a little bit of promise. We talked about it over the offseason that Russell Gage could be a legit receiver in any offense. He wouldn't have to be working alongside anybody. But I think in this situation, there's not many other options outside of Russell Gage. And the Bucs offense has kind of been weird so far this season, just not as good as they usually are. Tom Brady's been in a bit of a funk, believe it or not. Maybe age is catching up to him. We don't know. But Russell Gage, I think with Mike Evans back, is in a much better position to score some points and actually produce in a much more efficient way than he has. He got a lot of targets, but he didn't put up the numbers that you'd expect to see with those targets that he got. Faraz, I do think you are on mute.
Oh, I am. Sorry.
Yeah,
acoustic guitar covers is asking, what about Duvernay? What about Mac Hollins? Duvernay is not available in most leagues. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's available in only like 35% of leagues or something like that. Right. He's one of those guys who, isn't really getting volume. But he, Lamar Jackson's on fire right now, and he's going to be taking advantage of that. He had that, that kick return for the touchdown in week 2. But, you look at his targets, 2 targets last week, 2 targets the week before, 4 targets the week before that.
Yeah.
Nothing you really hang your hat on. It's not a play that I like to play. Like, he's like a desperation, like hope he gets a touchdown type of guy. But other than that, I'm not really shooting for that because they have Mark Andrews, they have Rashad Bateman, they're a low volume passing offense.
Yeah. Well, That's the thing about the Ravens, Devin Duvernay. On paper, you see his 3 weeks, 21 points, 12 points, 10 points, but you have to consider that he did get points depending on your scoring format for returning that kick at the beginning of the game for a touchdown. That's 6 points right there. Then you look at the usage, like you said, 4 targets in week 1, 2 targets, 2 targets. That's not sustainable production. Lamar Jackson is on a hot streak, so as long as Lamar Jackson's on a hot streak and just, balling, Devin Duvernay should be able to, have the upside each week, but you don't want to bet on that all the time. Like 2 targets, it's been interesting to see. You don't want to say that it can't continue, especially with Lamar Jackson, a quarterback. The production, him scoring touchdowns despite the low volume, but something's got to give, and I don't think it's going to be holding up for the length of the season, especially like you said with Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman in that offense, and even Isaiah Likely. He could come on later in the season. Devin Duvernay, he's been good for you so far. Maybe sell high if someone wants to buy him, but I wouldn't expect this to continue.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hollins, he's 29 years old. He's never had a game like this in his life, and this is not something I would buy into. They were bracketing Devontae Adams all game long, and Hollins was just running free the entire time. Remember, this is the same Titans team that got destroyed by Stephon Diggs on Monday Night Football in Week 2. They were not going to let Devontae Adams do the same thing to them. Yeah. Instead, it was Mac Hollins who ended up doing it because they didn't think that would be possible. So I would not chase that. They have Devontae, they had Hunter Renfrow, they have, Renfrow wasn't even in this game, right? And that allowed Hollins to do his thing too. A lot of targets opened up for him. So Darren Waller is there as well. So this is not a situation where I want to buy into Mac Hollins. That's a good question though, because a lot of people have been asking about that. I want to hit these 2 Cardinals receivers here, Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch. We've seen what Dortch has been doing. I think if you need a start this week, I think Dortch is probably the pickup, given Moore has yet to practice. So if you don't need a wide receiver start yet, and you're looking more long-term in a full PPR league, I would pick up Rondale Moore. I think he simply replaces Dortch when he's fully healthy in that same role out of the slot. Dortch, I think he should continue to be a target hog as long as Rondale Moore's out. He's the overall PPR wide receiver 19 on the year. So he can easily be placed into lineups in PPR. Like Greg Dortch is somebody that he was on the Jets practice squad before. He was on a few practice squads, around the league. And, he's always been somebody that, a lot of teams are familiar with. A lot of fans are familiar with too, because he always lights it up in the preseason. But I do think Rondale Moore, is a talented player, and they have big plans for him. It's just unfortunate that he had to have that soft tissue injury to start the year. But I do think he ends up replacing him. So I prefer Moore to be on my roster, but if I need to start this week, it's Dortch.
Yeah, and that's why he's going to be. I think you have it labeled here correctly. Greg Dortch being the short term, Rondale being more long term. But when Rondale Moore comes back, Greg Dortch is going to be shoved down the depth chart already, and then we have DeAndre Hopkins coming back, believe it or not, pretty soon. You think about it, he'll be back, and that's going to shove Greg Dortch even further down the depth chart. So really, you're either going to get the value out of him now. You're not going to be able to sell him because people understand that Greg Dortch is going to move down the depth chart like that. But use Greg Dortch while you can now. Don't expect this production to continue. Once DeAndre Hopkins is back and Rondale Moore's working the offense, Zach Ertz will be there. There's going to be plenty of targets ahead of them. Greg Dortch is kind of be reduced to a minimal role unless anything would happen to any of the receivers like Rondale Moore again or DeAndre Hopkins. But they're both definitely startable when they play up until DeAndre Hopkins comes back. Then it's going to be more the Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins show. Greg Dortch is going to kind of fall by the wayside. Not necessarily because he's not talented, just because there's more mouths to feed than, and he's kind of, last in the line.
Yeah, so now before we get to 11 through 20, I want to get to how much FAAB we're spending on these top guys, like Jamal Williams, if he's available, Herbert, Dubs, Madison. If Jamal Williams is available, and we know, at this point, we kind of know that Swift is going to be out, how much are you spending on Jamal Williams?
So FAAB-wise? It depends on my urgency at running back.
Let's say you could really use your RB2.
Let's say you had DeAndre Swift.
There you go. And you need to replace.
If you had DeAndre Swift, I'm going all in for Jamal Williams, and if not Jamal Williams, I go for Khalil Herbert if he's there.
What does all in mean? Like what?
Not 100. But I'd go maybe 40. because we
Yeah.
know that DeAndre Swift, he's not the most durable back.
Right.
There's obviously the chance that he could come back from injury, play 2 games, and get hurt again. And Jamal Williams, even when he's not, even when DeAndre Swift is on the field, Jamal Williams is still getting points and producing. It's not like he's
Yep.
not startable. You can throw him in at a
Yep.
flex, and he has a touchdown upside to get you through the week. I go pretty heavy on Jamal Williams.
Yeah. I'm with you in that sense, especially if you're at need at running back. I think he's the best bet out of all these guys for the next week or two.
Right.
Khalil Herbert, I'm probably going like maybe 30 to 35% on
Yeah.
Khalil Herbert, knowing what we know right now. Let's say we know Montgomery's out for the next couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, let's say, right? With a high, well, listen, if it's a high ankle sprain, it'll be longer than that, right? If it's a high ankle sprain, likely 3 to 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, maybe we'll hear about that. Maybe we won't. If we don't hear anything about it, I won't be able to spend that much. But if I do know that he's going to be out for 3 to 5 weeks with a high ankle sprain, I'm probably spending 50% or more on Khalil Herbert. If I don't know that, I'm probably spending 30 to 35.
Yeah, I think 30 to 35 is a good spot to start.
Yeah.
If you're real, and maybe you're a Bears fan, or maybe you're anticipating, and you're a fantasy doctor, and you know that David Montgomery's going to be out, and something that the rest of us don't, you could throw extra money at him. There's nothing wrong with going a little bit heavier, because Khalil Herbert has that upside. The only thing the Bears do on offense is run the ball this season so far. So it's not like you're investing in a guy that might not get the workload. No, he'll have the workload that you're looking for, and he has talent too. So no reason to not, especially if you have the budget to do that, to spend a little bit more.
I think Romeo Doubs is a tough one, right? Because you have the 1 game sample size of him doing his thing.
Yeah.
Right. And he is a wide receiver. He's not a running back. There are more wide receivers on the waiver wire most weeks.
Yeah.
You can pick up a bunch of guys. So, how heavy are you going on Romeo Doubs? Like if you need a wire, if you're going for depth here, right, and you already have a bunch of starting wide receivers, I might not go more than like 15%.
Yeah.
Something like that. But if I do need a wide receiver, I might end up going like 25, just to kind of take that shot.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'd see if I could get away with, 15 or 20. But then, that's rolling the dice because someone else might just overbid you. Someone else might want him a little bit more. But if you're not in desperate need of a receiver and you want to just add him as like a prospective ad, maybe
right.
if he pans out, you'll be in really good shape. 15, I think I would throw just to see what you can get, because if nobody else gets him, you get him for pretty cheap. You think about it that way. But if you're in need of a wide receiver, I'd say 25. I'd cap it there though, because I think there are a bunch of other receivers that have the chance to come on.
Right, exactly. Alexander Madison, we're probably going, I would say, if he's available, we kind of know that Dalvin Cook, or we have a feeling that Dalvin Cook is going to play next week, but there's always that chance of re-aggravation to that shoulder, or re-dislocation of the shoulder. That's probably a better way to put it. I would probably go like maybe like 30% on Madison right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'll go too much higher. Like if I knew that Madison was going to be playable, this week, I might go 50% plus, just because like we don't know what that shoulder situation is like. We kind of have a banked like RB1 play, because we see what Madison does, when he's on the field. How are you handling this situation? Because this one's a little tricky if he's available in your waiver wire.
So if he's available in your waiver wire, I mean, chances are you're gonna have a bunch of people, trying to get a hold of him because of Dalvin Cook. But the thing I'm kind of considering is that we've seen Dalvin Cook, like we said, play through the injury before, and it's the same injury that he had before. And the reports haven't been like negative. It's not like, oh, this might be a little bit worse than it was last season. He's not gonna be able to put a sling on and play. We did hear that he could just throw it in a harness and be good to go, the next week. So for me, that kind of makes me feel like, I don't need Alexander Madison. If Jamal Williams or Khalil Herbert are also there on the wire, I'd throw, I think I would cap out at 25, but that would be really pushing. I think 20 is what I'd throw. And that's just me.
I feel you.
I'm not.
I understand your logic here, though, because if we know that Dalvin Cook is playing, what are you really paying for? Right? You are paying for that. You are paying for somebody you can throw on your bench this week, Like you're hoping that like 20% will get you somebody that you can just throw in your lineup if you wanted to,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That's what you're hoping for. So I totally understand that. I mean, it's a good way to look at it.
Because I look at it, we talked about Jamal Williams. I said I'd throw 30 or 35 at Jamal Williams. We know he's going to have a role regardless of whether DeAndre Swift plays or not. Alexander
Exactly.
Madison, not so much the case. So I don't know if I want to go and bet someone who's just a pinch player because somebody is injured. You don't want to spend, I mean, in many cases, if your budget's 100, you don't want to spend a fifth of your budget on a player that's going to spend 13, 14, 15 games out of the year on your bench. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, let's move on to 11 through 20 here. I have David Njoku at 11. He had the elite route participation the entire year. So this blow up game was like going to come at some point. This
Yeah.
was a really good blow up game for him, but
Yeah.
inconsistency might still be an issue, given he didn't have a noteworthy game until week 3, but it's possible they just needed some time to gel. Um, I have Samaje Perine here at number 12. And the reason why I have him here is because this is more of a short-term ad, like basically just for Thursday night, because they are playing. The Bengals are playing on Thursday night. Joe Mixon
Yeah.
has an ankle injury. Apparently, it's not serious. Apparently he is going to play in this game. Zach Taylor did say he's going to play. He should be good to go. However, it is possible that he tweaks it again on Thursday night, right?
Mhm.
And if that happens, then you might have Samaje Perine. You might be fighting for Samaje Perine on the waiver wire. I don't want to fight on the waiver wire for Samaje Perine. If that were to happen. So if I can get him now, right, throw maybe $1 at him or something like that, throw him at the back of my bench just in case, see what happens. If you play on Yahoo, if you play on Sleeper, if you play on these other platforms, but in the league that you play in allow you to drop bench players after they play on Thursday night, then you can just drop him if Mixon leaves the game unscathed, right? And then you
Yeah.
just pick up another handcuff or pick up somebody else for Sunday to see if their value increases on Sunday, and kind of keep doing that until Monday night.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And that's the thing. You don't want to break the bank on a guy like
No,
Samaje Perine. There's a bunch of other, like we said, running backs that could be on your wire this week that we'd actually be targeting much more. And Samaje Perine, it seems like a really good situation. This is the pass catching back from Cincinnati. If he gets a rushing workload, he'll be pretty good. He's not really even close to Joe Mixon in terms of talent. He just happens to be the receiving guy. So I'm not breaking the bank on Samaje Perine. I actually did this last season. It was Joe Mixon was out, and I said, I'll pick up Samaje Perine as my streamer this week or as a waiver wire pickup, and I'll start him. He put up 0 points. So it might
is
just
that? I think that is, if I'm not mistaken, that's the week that Joe Mixon actually played, right? I think they said that Joe Mixon wasn't going to have a role, but Joe Mixon was active, and then he ended up getting the work. I think it was some sort of situation like that, if I'm not mistaken.
it was rough regardless. But
Right.
the Bengals are not, I don't think, inclined to give Samaje Perine any type of like 3-down roll, early down roll, any type of work that's going to be enough to make him really fantasy relevant. He did have a touchdown last week, but it's they come and go, So I'm not breaking the bank on Samaje Perine.
No. We are definitely not breaking the bank on him. Jacoby Myers at number 13. He's the clear number 1 wide receiver for the Patriots. I know that Devontae Parker did his thing, with him gone, but they were going up against the Ravens. Okay, and
Yeah.
the Ravens have been terrible in their secondary. But whether he's banged up or not, he should be on rosters. And we're talking about Jacoby Myers here. He did get a limited practice in on Friday before being ruled out on Sunday. It's possible that he's back this week. They are going from Mac Jones to Brian Hoyer. It doesn't really affect whether I have Myers on my bench or not for now.
Yeah.
And if you need him, you can play him in PPR leagues. He's a high target share type of guy. He shouldn't be on waivers.
No, he shouldn't be on waivers. I like Jacoby Myers a lot more with Mac Jones at quarterback, but you have to wonder if there's much difference between Mac Jones and Brian Hoyer in terms of their play style and the way the offense
especially
is going
with
to
the way
run.
that Mac Jones has been playing so far this year. Not
Yeah.
great.
No, I
Not
hear
great.
you. Yeah, 100%. But Jacoby Myers, before he didn't play last week, he was actually a bit of a target hog. He got plenty of targets. He had the volume that we were looking for, and he's been not touchdown dependent his whole career, as we know. So I like Jacoby Myers actually going into the season. He was going undrafted in some cases or very late. There's no reason for him to be on the waiver wire because he is, like we said, the de facto kind of wide receiver 1 for New England. As long as Devontae Parker doesn't have another explosive game. I think it's going to be difficult for Devontae Parker to replicate the performance that he had on Sunday. It was a high-scoring game. They're playing a much better defense in the Packers next week. So we'll see how it goes. I think Jacoby Myers really the only safe, well, not really safe, but he's the safest bet for the Patriots wide receivers.
Real recognized real in the YouTube chat here saying, I traded away Derrick Henry for Amon-Ra St. Brown and David Montgomery on Sunday. Still a good trade or no? All I have to say is,
yeah,
nice job.
Right.
Nice job. I would have traded away Derrick Henry just for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you happen to get David Montgomery on top of that.
Well, that's
no, for sure.
That's what's
Amon-Ra
really
St. Brown is a wide receiver one who's going to get it done for you every single week. The only reason why he didn't get it done like in a huge way this past week is because he got banged up in that game and he missed some time.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, despite him doing his thing last week, he still doesn't look the same. It doesn't look the same. Doesn't look like the same guy to me. But I would have done this deal. The fact that you got David Montgomery and RB2 on top of that, is
an immediate replacement for Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
even if he's not playing.
Yeah,
even if he's not playing this week.
It sucks that Montgomery got hurt. Hopefully he's not hurt for too long. But yeah,
no,
nice job.
I like that trade definitely. The 1-for-1, I might have been a little hesitant on, but that's not the case.
I would have done that.
We don't even have to worry about it. We don't even.
I've actually been trying to acquire Amon-Ra St. Brown like a crazy person. Anyway, Michael Gallup, I have him at number 14. If you don't need to start this week, and he'll probably be back this week. My guess is that he'll be back.
He'll be back.
He's been practicing in full, the entire week last week, and then they said that he wasn't going to play. But I think he's probably one of the best long-term stashes. Even if he doesn't get a full workload in his first week back, he'll easily be the Cowboys' number 2 wide receiver behind CeeDee Lamb. And I wouldn't wait until Dak is back before I pick him up and stash him. It's possible that you can play him. I wouldn't play him this week in week 4, but it's possible that we see what his role looks like. Coming off the injury, and maybe he'll be back and ready to be placed in your lineup in week 5.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The thing with Gallup, he actually missed time last season, and he came back and he had a mediocre day. He had 5 targets. I think it was 3 catches. It wasn't a very big game for him. But then after that, his targets went 10, 8, 9, 9. So I'd say hold your horses on starting Gallup, this week, even though he has been
get it?
Cowboys, hold your horses.
Get it?
Yes. But hold your horses on him for now. I think the week after, it's a very good matchup for the Cowboys because that's when Dak could be coming back. And it's a good matchup against the Rams, likely to be high scoring if this Cowboys offense can get back to its ways. But Gallup, he's been a favorite target of Dak through his career. He just hasn't been on the field that much because of injury. He's been prone to get banged up. So, but when he is on the field, he's worth having. He has the upside. He's a big play threat. And he's definitely worth having on your bench. I like you said, don't wait to pick him up because then once Dak comes back and everything's looking good for Dallas, people are going to be chomping at the bit to get their hands on Michael Gallup.
We got a comment here in the chat. A good question, and that is coming from Seth Curry. Drop Gerald Everett for Tyler Conklin.
I don't really know. I would say they're both trending in a direction where I think that they're both going to kind of fall off. I mean, Gerald Everett didn't have a very good week this week, but that was just an off day for the Chargers overall with Justin Herbert banged up. A lot of guys missing time in Los Angeles for the Chargers. So I think it might have been a bit of an outlier, but I think that overall, like you said, Donald Parham's kind of waiting in the wings. If he comes back, I feel like he's going to jump ahead, take some time from Gerald Everett, and the workload might not necessarily be there like it was the first 2 weeks. And the same thing I think is going to happen to Tyler Conklin because Zach Wilson's going to come back. I think we're going to see those targets moved all over the place. I don't think they're going to be throwing 60 times a game anymore. And Tyler Conklin might be one of the guys that just kind of falls off the map because there are a bunch of good receivers and other players, playmakers on that offense for the Jets. So I would say I'm not prioritizing Tyler Conklin. I'm not going to be like, dropping a Gerald Everett who has Justin Herbert throwing to him. I'd stick with Everett personally.
Yeah, this one's tough because Tyler Conklin is getting the targets. He is getting the route participation, like Tyler Conklin, Gerald Everett's only at 72% in week 3. It's barely moving up. He's not getting a crazy target share either. When you look at Conklin, 79% route participation this week. So, not too much higher. So, you could say that, he's Everett's on a better offense. I might hold Conklin. I might hold Everett.
Yeah. I don't think it's one thing if you're just adding Conklin alongside of Everett. You'd have to have a pretty deep bench to do that. But I'm not.
That's what I would lean like when I have 2 of these guys, I would do that. I would hold when I'm in tight end purgatory. I would hold 2 tight ends to see which one over a longer sample size is better. If you can afford to have both, I would try to have both and see what happens this week with Zach Wilson coming back, see what happens in LA with Keenan Allen coming back, right? So there's a couple of factors here that can completely shift, how we're feeling about these guys after week 4. So it's a tough call, but it's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not shooing Gerald Everett off my bench to let.
Tyler
Conklin.
I'm with you on that one. It's just, he looks good. He looks good. He looks like a wide receiver out there. It's like a thick wide receiver.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. This is a family show.
Yeah.
Isaiah McKenzie, the reason why I like him this week is because of the Ravens. Okay. He's going to be hit or miss. He only ran a route on 56% of Josh Allen's dropbacks last week, but there were 75 dropbacks in that game. I think they had the ball for 40 minutes of the 60 minutes. So now I can see the Ravens game being a similar type of shootout. And they have been extremely vulnerable to the wide receiver position. They get up the most fantasy points to wide receivers out of the slot coming into week 3, right? And Jacoby Myers likely would have killed it last week if he did play. But Devontae Parker ended up killing it instead. But McKenzie, I think this week, he's a solid wide receiver streamer. He went 7 for 76 with a touchdown on 9 targets last week. And I think, if you're going to play him, I think this is one of those weeks where you can.
I think so, absolutely, because if Mac Jones can throw 156 yards to Devontae Parker on you, then what's Josh Allen going to do? This is going to be like we saw Josh Allen angry at the end of the Dolphins game last week. I feel like he's going to be releasing his rage, and it's just going to be this could be a humongous fantasy game because you have Lamar Jackson on the other side too, and a banged up Bills defense. This could just be fireworks all the way through.
Oh, yeah. Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie.
Just starting everybody.
Just start everybody.
Yeah, starting everybody. Even Devin Duvernay.
Josh Palmer, I have him at 16 here. It's likely that Keenan Allen's back this week, but as we've seen, Palmer is a legit handcuff to these Chargers wide receivers. 21% target share in week 3, 23% target share in week 2. With Allen out, but also even with Allen coming back, he's still a starter on this offense opposite Mike Williams when Keenan Allen is healthy. Keenan Allen is the primary slot. So he's still a solid upside desperation play, to kind of keep on your bench. And when you need somebody, you can plug him in. I think he's still going to have his games, even with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen in. It's just going to be a lot less predictable. But I think he's still somebody that, belongs on benches and shouldn't be on waiver wires.
No, right. I'm with you there. I know you have Josh Palmer in a couple leagues. I've thought about adding him, but as long as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams there, I'm not going to be starting him over a couple of the guys that I would have on my bench. Obviously, that might not be the case for everybody. There's nothing wrong with starting Josh Palmer in a pinch. I wouldn't start him at wide receiver too. He's a flex, as long as Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are around. But like we said, if Keenan Allen's out, he had 2 solid weeks. So there's no reason to think that if anything happens to any receivers that he won't see an increased workload. There's no reason to think that. He obviously is trusted by the Chargers and by Justin Herbert. He looks for him. He had good target share. That's what you want to see. He's a good asset, good bench player.
He's a good bench player.
Yeah, exactly. He's a good bench player. If you need him, if you need to start him, it's not necessarily the end of the world.
Yeah,
it's not
and I think most of his value actually comes from being that handcuff. You know what I'm saying? That's where he has that, kind of that dual role type of thing on your bench. Where
he's just waiting in the wings.
He's kind of like a Tyler Boyd. He's a cheaper version of Tyler Boyd, or which isn't great but Tyler Boyd, you can throw him in, he can do his thing, but is not as predictable, right?
Yeah, he's a player that can appreciate very quickly if things go the right way.
There you go. There you go. I love how we said the same thing 4 different ways, just so
Yes.
people understand what the hell we're talking
We're
about.
just we're just hammering it home.
So I had Noah Brown here at number 17. He's shown a good rapport with Cooper Rush. Obviously keep an eye on Michael Gallup and all that. If Gallup is out again, which I doubt he is, I think Brown's a solid flex play. If Gallup is back though, like you said, he might not have a huge role the first week back. I think he'll still be like a desperation play in deeper leagues, given the fact that he does have some rapport with Cooper Rush.
Yeah.
Are you like does Noah Brown take a big hit for you with Gallup back this week?
Maybe not so much this week, but he takes a big hit in the long run.
Yes, this is more of a short-term play.
Yeah,
And also I wanted to mention that Washington is a good matchup for wide receivers, and that's part of the reason why I have him here.
right. So it's a good matchup for wide receivers, and you also look at it as it's still going to be presumably Cooper Rush starting this week. They said that Dak might be back for the Rams game, but he has all of that waiting in the wings for him. He has that on the horizon where if Dak comes back and Michael Gallup's back and healthy by week 5, this could be a big thing where Noah Brown, where he was once benefiting these past few weeks, benefiting from playing with Cooper Rush, a guy that he has good rapport with on an offense that is lacking weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb. That's where his production is coming from. Where in 2 weeks, it could be a completely different scene and story.
Yeah.
Quarterback could be different. The receiving core could be more dynamic, especially if Dalton Schultz comes back. He could be back soon. It's going to get crowded quick. Dallas has a lot of guys coming from the infirmary. They'll be back soon. So, you might be able to squeeze one more week out of Noah Brown before he kind of falls back to where we expected him to be, not really fantasy relevant, but I think it's still worth having him on the bench just in case anything would happen. We know Michael Gallup is relatively prone to injury, and Dalton Schultz, he's not injured, he's not prone to injury, but say something happens, he could be worth having.
Yeah, we don't know how, he does have that PCL injury, right? We don't know how effective he's going to be. We don't know if he's going to be back to his normal route participation, right? There's a couple questions there when it comes to Dalton Schultz, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. So just to round this out, I have Raheem Mostert at number 18, Robert Tonyan at number 19, and Jalen Warren at number 20. Just for Raheem Mostert, like Miami didn't run a lot of plays. They only had the ball for 20 minutes last week. That led to production being somewhat stifled for the entire offense. Chase Edmonds, he did gain a bit of a lead in this backfield. Again, like this is going to flip-flop back and forth, it feels like. But it was pretty close. Edmonds is rostered in most leagues. I don't think people are really dropping him. So Mostert should be on rosters as well, given that he didn't have any production, this past week. But I think in a normal type of game script, he should be fine. Somebody just to have, just in case one of these guys does, in fact, take a lead, because this offense looks like it has taken a step forward. It looks like it's going to be a good offense. So you kind of want to have these guys on your bench just in case something happens.
Yeah, and this is what we expected for the Dolphins backfield the whole time. The thing about the Dolphins offense is it looks like they can win multiple ways. With Raheem Mostert, it could be Raheem Mostert one day, Chase Edmonds another day, and that's the way he's going to be the whole season. But if you have him on your bench,
unless one of them gets hurt.
Yeah, unless one of them gets hurt. But as long as they're both healthy, either of them are liable to take the majority of their workload and put up a solid performance for you week in and week out. You just have to hit them on the right week. But there's nothing wrong with starting either of them if you don't have anybody better to play at running back. Especially if you're RB2, if they're your RB2, you're fine starting them there. Because we saw Chase Edmonds actually broke out. He had a decent week compared to what we had seen so far. And Raheem Mostert could be in line for something similar because, like you said, they didn't run very many plays hardly at all, the Dolphins. So he had 8 carries anyway. But
yeah, he just he could have seen 15 touches in this game if they had the ball for another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I have Robert Tonyan at 19. He only ran around on 56% of dropbacks, but he was still second on the team in target share behind Romeo Doubs. So imagine if that route participation goes up, right? Tonyan would potentially see 10 plus targets a game. So he's a prospective ad in case that happens. But he's also, a relatively decent streamer if you need one. Because there's no one else that it seems like Aaron Rodgers trusts right now besides Romeo Doubs, maybe a little bit of maybe a little bit of Alan Lazard. But Robert Tonyan, given the tight end landscape right now, anybody could kind of pop off at this point.
Yeah,
Jalen Warren. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say commenting on the tight end landscape. There's like nobody outside the top 2 Mark Andrews and Travis
If Tyler
Kelce.
if Tyler Conklin is the tight end 3 on the year, you know what's up.
Yeah, over Kyle Pitts. Can you believe it?
Oh my God, that's imagine saying something like that.
We talked. Yeah, in the first 3 weeks, Tyler Conklin will be actually scoring more points than Kyle Pitts.
Oh my God.
I mean, would you be surprised though hearing that last season? Say that happened at the end of last season. Would you be surprised? You'd be like, well, same usage for Kyle Pitts. So,
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was getting at this point. I wish we were getting last year's Kyle Pitts, dude. Honestly, I wish that was the case. So the reason why I have Jaylen Warren at number 20 here at the last pick is he's one of the few 3-down handcuffs who is likely available in your league. There's not too many, and he's probably like the least rostered guy. So if he's available, he's a good solid bench stash. Don't forget about Najee Harris and that foot injury that he had or whatever he had. Things can pop off. He has a big workload. And guys who have big workloads can be more prone to injury. So, somebody solid to keep at the end of your bench. Might not be a good offense, but 3-down workloads are worth a lot.
Yeah, just pure handcuff with Jaylen Warren. That's about it. That's all you can really say for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sums it up.
That's it. That's all we got today, guys. I did want to quickly go over some streamers real quick with you guys. I know you want that. Quarterback streamers, Jared Goff against Seattle. These guys are rostered in less than 50% of leagues or so. Jared Goff at home against Seattle. Jameis Winston at home against Minnesota. Well, actually, no, they're in London. It's a home game, but they're in London. Jimmy G against the Rams. The Rams have given up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. This could be a good, despite Jalen Ramsey being there, this could be a good matchup for guys like Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Geno Smith at Detroit. They're actually running faster now in Seattle, which is surprising. Somebody got through to Pete Carroll there. Marcus Mariota against Cleveland. That rushing upside is going to keep him in line to be, a low-end fantasy starter. And Baker Mayfield versus Arizona if you're extremely desperate because of the matchup. We already talked about a few tight ends already. Evan Ingram, is a guy we didn't talk about, but if those other guys aren't available on your waiver wire, he almost had a touchdown. He did have a 2-point conversion, and he had 80% route participation on what seems like an improved Jaguars offense. Now we got defensive streamers. These are teams that are rostered in less than 55 or less percent of leagues. Philly versus Jacksonville at home. They had 9 sacks last week, 3 interceptions the week before, a touchdown the week before that. Keep Philly, just start them every week. Pittsburgh against the Jets at home, Chicago in New York, and against the Giants, and Miami in Cincinnati. I think that is a little bit of a sneaky one there.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We'll be back tomorrow at noon Eastern time talking about buys and sells. Guys, we're looking to trade and buy. So we'll see you guys then. Take it easy. Thank you so much for joining. See you soon. Bye.